Nevada. So this is after we had won our case in Oregon, and we were acquitted on all charges, and that was a miracle, literally the hand of God protecting us. And this is a little understanding of that. When the jury went to deliberation, they deliberated for 5 days. They were back there basically determining our fate. And it was a battle getting the truth to them, but after an 8-week trial, we felt like we had done everything we could to get them the truth, and so it was in their hands now. And they would bring us to the federal courthouse every day, and we stayed in the holding cells, like a dungeon in the bottom of the courthouse. And we stayed there every day, and then because as soon as they were done deliberating, then we would have to go in there and they'd give us our, basically what they had decided. And they didn't know when they were going to be done, so day after day they were in there. And after about day 2, I think it was either day 2 or day 3, this complete spirit of peace and came over me. And it wasn't as if it was not as if the Lord was telling me that we were going to be acquitted. It was the Lord helping me be okay with whatever was decided. Whatever was decided. And I was completely okay with whatever was decided. And then the jury, they were finished, so they bring us in. I think it was a Friday. Bring us in, and the jury comes in. It's probably like 10 o'clock, and we've been incarcerated for I think 10 months at this point. And maximum security, a good part of it was mostly lockdown or solitary type situation. So it was really rough. My family and everything, and my brothers, and my dad and other brothers are all down in Nevada waiting for trial down there. Anyway, the jury comes in, and because I was listed, the first name of the indictment is Ammon Bundy et al. The judge asked me to stand up. I stood up. And you have to understand that this entire time while the jury was deliberating, the government, the federal government, and all was planning a party, because they were so convinced that I and the others were going to be convicted. And they brought in the courtroom, they brought in extra seating that they put all along the courtroom, and they were these padded, really nice chairs all the way around in multiple rows, and they brought in all the heads of the departments of everything, with the federal government, U.S. Attorney, Department of Justice, and they had them all sitting in these chairs, and then they had live streamed the when the jury come out, they had it live streaming to the different satellites for like the Bureau of Land Management, and each satellite was having a meeting where all the employees of the Department of Interior were all getting together, and they were watching this, and in essence preparing to celebrate and to celebrate what was about to happen. And the jury comes in, the judge asked me to stand. I stood up. I was completely at peace no matter what was going to happen. And the jury foreman, the judge asked for the verdict, and the jury foreman stood up, and the bailiff took the verdict, brought it over to the judge. It's folded, and she opens it up, and she almost choked. She went like that, and then she says, "Well, now." That's what she said. "Well, now." And it took her a little while to get her composure, right? And then she read it. She read, and that I was not guilty. And she read through each line. There was five of them, I believe. Not guilty, not guilty, not guilty, not guilty. And when the last one, not guilty, the room was like it was like electricity in there. And these heads of these departments and these high-ranking government officials, they were like gnarling, like they were like so angry. They were so angry. And the best I could explain it is a gnashing of the teeth, like we read in the scriptures. They were so angry. And they wanted to get their hands on us so bad. But God wouldn't let them. He wouldn't let them. And we know that, I mean, it wasn't very long after that. So then they had each defendant stand up, not guilty, not guilty, not guilty. There was, I don't know, was there 7 of us? 7 of us. All. So, and then the next one, not guilty, not guilty, not. They had to do it 7 times. And they're just going crazy. They literally cannot contain themselves. They're so angry and so, wicked that they could not get a hold of us. And it reminds me, my neighbor right here, he's an outfitter, and so he's got a bunch of dogs, and they'll chase, whatever it is. But he's got some greyhound mixes, and he's got one really big dog, and he's everybody wants to use that dog to breed because he's got such good bloodline, and he's so good at what he does and he can chase down a coyote, and they run like 45 miles an hour. But he says that there's times when that dog can't catch the coyote, and you'll see him, and the dog just can't catch him for whatever, the coyote's too fast. And that dog, when he knows he can't catch it, he starts to like whimper and whine, like while he's running, and he's just so angry and so mad that he can't go and destroy that coyote. Wow. Right? And it reminds me of the way that they react. And so I just want to testify to you that I know that God protects. That He has a great power to protect. And He does it where our faith is still required. Right? So we don't see Him come down and wipe them out. Not that He can't do that, right? He can certainly do that. But our faith remains intact, meaning it still has to be exercised through the entire thing. Right? But then when you look back, it's a miracle. It's an absolute miracle. And it was painful, and it was terrible, and it was, many know that it was just shortly minutes after that my attorney, Marcus Mumford, stood up and said because we were acquitted that the court had to let us go. And we still had our case in Nevada to fight. And they were so upset with the situation, couldn't contain themselves so much. They attacked my attorney and tased him and arrested him right on the. They literally attacked him, threw on the floor, tased him multiple times, and arrested my attorney. This was just a few minutes after we were acquitted. And so we left there, we went down to Nevada, and we were incarcerated for, that's another thing. It was a great miracle, but we spent another 14, 15 months incarcerated after that. And I just want to share one little, I learned a tremendous amount of things when I was incarcerated. It's like a petri dish of life. Everything happens faster, but the relationships and the way things are is all going on inside the prison, but it's very contained so you can see it, and it happens so much faster that you can learn lessons that you can't learn You can learn lessons in just days there that you can't learn in years outside. And I believe it was one of the reasons why I needed to go through what I went through. One of the things that was happening when we first got in there, we began to pray as a group. We were praying every day because it was more open down there. We were in like a big open room. They put 100 men in like a half the size of a high school gym. And we lived there 24/7 in bunk beds with toilets on the walls and showers on the walls. And that's how we lived. And each evening we'd say, those that wanted would say prayers together. And there was an individual that was there, and he was saying prayers with us, and he was had a good spirit about him. And then he ended up getting convicted, so he was going to go to prison, because everybody in this jail were basically those still fighting their case. But the interesting thing what happened was, and hopefully I can make my point here, is he decided after he was convicted, like right after, he decided that he was going to convert to be a Muslim. And he was a Christian before. And it kind of really like made me ponder and think about, like, why would a person do that? Right? And I believe either, this is just my theory, or maybe this is the truth. But I'm going to share it with you because I began to understand and try to look because of what was happening. Because the Muslim religion was the fastest growing religion in the prisons, and it's actually, I think, the fastest growing religion in the world. And I began to ask the question, well, why? Like, why? And so I started to try to understand what was the Muslim religion, the details of it, and ultimately what I began, and then comparing it to Christian religion, and what Christ teaches. And ultimately what it came down to is that God our Father and His Son Jesus Christ require that all things are made right, which is the term for justice. They require justice. If it wasn't so, Christ wouldn't have had to come and pay for our sins. Because in the end, all things have to be made right. All wrongs have to be corrected, or God would not be God. So all these things that are going on must be made right. And it was so important that they're made right, and we were so incapable of making them right, that God had to send His Son. And why? Because all things have to be made right, or God would not be God. Right? So therefore, Christ came down. He did not deserve what He got. He did it so that He can atone for the wrongs that we have done, so therefore we can stand, and God can say, you can enter, and things have been made right. There's no other religion that teaches that. None. And so it is easier to be part of a different religion rather than being a true Christian. Because you think that I can go do whatever I want, and somehow in eternity, in life, in the life after, or whatever it might be, it's not going to have to be atoned for. But we understand and know that all wrongs have to be made right. Otherwise, there would be no reason for Christ to come. And so when the jails are, the individuals in the jails are running to a religion that teaches that the wrongs don't have to be made right, it is easier for them to think that that is okay. But true Christians who truly follow Christ know and understand that God our Father will make all things right in the end, and that all things must be made right, or God cannot be God. And so, that's what we're after. We're after justice. We're after trying to get things as right as we can. And I guess that's the work that we're into. And I know that as we do this, God, our Father and the Son, will continue to protect us, and He will give us the advantage to be able to be free and remain free. And I say that in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.